At his junior high school, the boy looked up in panic as a painful memory all of a sudden resurfaced and nearly stole his breath. He remembered food scattered across the floor while the girls casually joked around as if none of it mattered. They criticized him for not handling things better and treated his discomfort like harmless entertainment, leaving him feeling powerless. In that junior high flashback, they cornered him and told him this was simply the consequence of his mistakes, as if it were completely normal. He realized it had always been those girls, and one of them pushed the same cruel routine forward again without hesitation. The group called it their usual punishment game, smiling as if his distress were completely ordinary, and that made it even harder to forget. Their relentless teasing left him shaken as the memory crashed over him, and the emotional scars still felt fresh. He admitted those punishment games were what finally pushed him to his limit, and that truth still haunted him. The flashback ended in April of spring, when he rented a nice apartment near Yotsuba Station and tried to begin a new life. Or so he hoped. The city stretched quietly around him, like a fresh chapter waiting to begin. Near the station, the boy checked his reflection and worried whether his outfit looked right, reminding himself he had even bought a mannequin to prepare for this new start in crowded Tokyo, because he needed this to work. Standing there alone, he wondered if these clothes really suited him, and that doubt exposed how fragile his new beginning still was. Even so, he forced himself to stay confident, trying to bury the fear that had followed him from the past. As he looked at the college, he told himself that from today on, he would finally chase the college life he had always wanted. Inside the crowded campus recruiting area, he froze for a moment as students called out around him, but this time he didn't run. A friendly group greeted him warmly, catching him off guard with the kind of attention he had never gotten used to. When they asked if he was a new student and whether he liked tennis, he nervously confirmed that he was a freshman. He admitted he had never played tennis and was only looking for a club, and they right away reassured him that beginners were welcome as they handed him a trial schedule. Clutching the flyer, he walked away while that friendly exchange lingered behind him, and that small kindness left him visibly emotional. Looking at the paper in his hands, he realized with quiet surprise that he had actually managed to talk to them, and nothing had gone wrong. Looking at the flyer, Ueno Sora reflected that the old version of himself never would have been accepted like this, and that made this tiny success feel precious. Fired up by that realization, he hurried forward with the sudden hope that his college life might really change. He imagined a bright, friendly campus life opening up around him, and for a moment, he let himself believe it could actually happen, until everything changed. Gripping his backpack, he vowed to make this new life the best it could be, and then a voice stopped him cold. Someone recognized him as Ueno Sora, and the instant his name was called, all his fragile confidence collapsed into panic. The speaker casually noted that he had come to Lime University too, and that familiar tone filled him with dread. When he turned and saw the girls from his past, the shock hit so hard that he felt his fresh start crumbling in front of him. He recognized Shinoyama Chisaki, who remarked that it had been a while since junior high, and her presence alone dragged his buried fear back to the surface. As another girl arrived and apologized for the wait, Ueno froze in disbelief, because even more of his past had followed him here. The newcomer happily identified him as Ueno and announced his arrival, turning his worst fear into reality. With Ueno still reeling, Shinoyama Chisaki smiled faintly and remarked that it really was him, while another girl greeted him as if this reunion were perfectly normal. Surrounded on all sides, Ueno could only stare in panic as the girls from his junior high days closed in, leaving him nowhere to retreat. Their faces dragged him straight back into the past, where he remembered the group gathering around him with that same casual amusement. In one memory, they laughed while he stood there uncomfortable and embarrassed, and Ueno could only let out a helpless sound. The flashback sharpened as one girl played a prank on him while the others watched, joking around and treating his discomfort like a game. Exhausted and overwhelmed, he remembered forcing himself to endure as they told him to hang on a little longer, turning his struggles into entertainment. Another memory followed, with the girls constantly asking him to do favors for them while they sat back comfortably and took advantage of his kindness. The humiliation kept escalating as they piled responsibilities onto him while continuing to tease him without remorse. It got even worse when they mocked his appearance and criticized the way he looked, making him feel completely unwelcome. Dragged out of the flashback, Ueno stood frozen between them in the present, his face drained as the full weight of those memories came crashing back. Ueno's mind locked up, and all he could force out was a broken response as panic took over. When one of the girls called out to him directly, Ueno jolted and hurriedly confirmed that he was Ueno. The blonde girl looked him over and started to comment on how different he seemed now, leaving Ueno tense and speechless. She observed that he looked more refined than before, and Ueno could only stare back in anxious confusion. The others joined in and noted that he dressed much better now and had changed compared to back then. A girl in a cap asked what department he was in, and when Ueno nervously said economics, she brightly told him they were in the same one. As the girls casually shared that some of them were in law while the others were in economics, Ueno weakly said that was great and struggled to keep up. They told him that even his whole presence felt different now, and Ueno bowed his head and thanked them with awkward restraint. Just as Ueno started to think he could slip away, the girls stopped him and said class was about to begin anyway, so they should all head home together later. As they began to leave, they told Ueno to keep in touch, and he was left sweating as the reunion turned into an ongoing connection he had never expected. In Ueno's memory, someone casually pointed out that Chisaki had forgotten her socks again, and that ordinary exchange made their old familiarity feel even stranger. Chisaki reacted with visible discomfort, as if the memory itself had brought back complicated feelings. Ueno remembered standing alone in his room after graduation, quietly getting dressed as the evening light filled the apartment. The girls had laughed that he was finally moving on and jokingly told him not to have a difficult time in high school too. That memory made Ueno realize that ever since graduating junior high, he had not seen them even once until now. Back then, he had tried to focus on something normal, deciding to head to the convenience store because he was hungry. But the moment he stepped out, both sides froze as Ueno and the girls all of a sudden ran into each other again at close range. Ueno's face went pale as surprise washed over him. The girls were startled to learn he lived there, while Ueno nervously insisted he had no idea they were in the building and asked if they had known about him. One of the girls burst out laughing at the coincidence, pointing out that Chisaki and Ueno had ended up as neighbors. They right away turned the situation into a joke, teasing that Ueno and Chisaki being neighbors seemed like fate, while Ueno shrank back in embarrassment. Still shaken, Ueno insisted he had only picked the apartment for its convenience near the station and supermarket, then became even more surprised when he realized Chisaki lived there too. When one girl asked if Chisaki had known about it, both she and Ueno separately explained that they had chosen the place for the exact same practical reason. The girl seized on that coincidence and playfully suggested there must be some special connection between them, making Ueno even more uncomfortable. Chisaki quietly agreed with the explanation, and Ueno was left stunned that she supported his version of events. Before he could recover, the girls asked Ueno whether he was free right now, and he nervously admitted he had no real plans. The moment he said that, they decided they should all go to Chisaki's room, and Ueno froze as one of the girls casually invited him along. A moment later, they arrived at Chisaki's door, and Ueno's tension only climbed as the reality of entering her room finally sank in. Inside the apartment, the group sat down together, and when they learned Ueno did not drink, they simply offered him juice instead. Sitting in Chisaki's room for the first time, Ueno found himself in a situation neither of them had expected. The silence between them grew harder to ignore. The atmosphere remained awkward, and neither side seemed sure what to say. The quiet tension lingered throughout the room. Every passing second seemed to stretch a little longer. Neither Ueno nor Chisaki could find an easy way to break the silence. The situation remained unresolved as everyone settled into the strange reunion. The atmosphere stayed charged even though the conversation had slowed down. The moment seemed frozen in place. The silence between them became harder to ignore with every passing second. Ueno's thoughts drifted back to difficult memories from junior high that he had spent years trying to leave behind. In the present, the girls casually offered him a snack and reminded him not to waste the juice, and their easy kindness left Ueno staring in confusion as he wondered if they had changed. A troubling possibility crossed his mind, and he began questioning everything he remembered about the past. Looking at their relaxed faces, Ueno realized in shock that they might not fully remember how their actions had affected him. As the girls chatted lightly among themselves, Ueno could only stand there quietly and consider the possibility. Their casual attitude made the answer feel surprisingly believable. He lowered his gaze and decided that if things stayed peaceful, he would simply focus on enjoying his college life. Another memory surfaced, and Ueno reflected on how much effort he had spent rebuilding his confidence after junior high. While one girl casually asked whether he knew anyone from their old school, Ueno silently wished he could leave those memories behind. Then the question turned directly toward him, and as they joked about the people from their old school, Ueno found himself pulled deeper into a conversation he never wanted. Ueno forced out a polite smile and decided he should keep an appropriate distance from the girls. Trying to survive the conversation, Ueno awkwardly claimed he was simply acting naturally and admitted with strained laughter that even he felt different now. The blonde girl noticed his sudden casual tone, and the group's relaxed mood made Ueno lower his guard. The moment he heard her reaction, Ueno froze and realized he might have spoken too freely. The blonde girl teasingly asked when he had become comfortable enough to talk like that, and Ueno right away felt nervous. She referenced an old incident from their school days, and the comment instantly brought back memories Ueno had hoped to forget. Shock made him lose control of his drink, and it spilled all over him as panic took over. The girls reacted at once, calling him clumsy while one of them apologetically offered tissues and pointed out the spill. Their voices overlapped as they told him to clean himself up quickly, and every word made Ueno feel as if old memories were resurfacing. With his heart pounding, Ueno stared at the scene in dread as a familiar feeling returned and left him shaken. The silence broke when the girls gathered around Ueno again, and unease right away settled over him. Ueno went rigid the second one of them brought up an old joke from their school days. The girls laughed it off as harmless nostalgia, but for Ueno, the memories felt much heavier. As they continued joking among themselves, Ueno found himself remembering moments he had worked hard to forget. One of the girls pushed the teasing further, and the pressure around Ueno began to grow. Ueno weakly questioned it, but the others continued talking as if everything were perfectly normal. The girls encouraged him to play along with the joke, while Ueno struggled to hide his discomfort. One girl laughed and told him not to be so serious, while Ueno froze under the weight of the situation. They joked about old rules from back then, and each comment made the memories feel more vivid. Surrounded by the same girls from his past, Ueno felt himself slipping back into old fears. That exchange left everyone feeling awkward, and the unease refused to fade. The moment lingered with no clear resolution. The tension stretched on without breaking. The atmosphere remained heavy and uncertain. Everything seemed frozen in uncomfortable silence. The weight of the moment refused to lift. The tense atmosphere continued unchanged. No one seemed willing to speak first. The awkwardness remained visible on every face. The pressure lingered with no easy escape. The moment stayed heavy. The silence itself felt unusually intense. Nothing was resolved, and the tension quietly continued to build. The scene moved forward beneath a cloud of uncertainty. The silence between them became increasingly difficult to ignore. The interaction left everyone unsettled. The weight of the moment still refused to ease. The atmosphere remained locked in uneasy stillness. The quiet tension refused to disappear. No words were spoken, yet the room remained charged. That uneasy feeling lingered without relief. The moment carried its full emotional weight. The interaction left both sides uncomfortable. The scene remained frozen in uncertainty. The tension continued without letting up. Ueno found himself overwhelmed by painful memories as laughter echoed in his mind and old insecurities resurfaced. Under the cold moonlight, those memories lingered far longer than he wanted. The room around him looked messy and neglected, reflecting the emotional exhaustion he carried from those years. Ueno all of a sudden jolted awake, breathing hard as the memory began to fade. Sweating and unsettled, he stared ahead while trying to separate the present from the past. The story returned to April and the beginning of college life, where everything had first started. Back then, two girls casually called out to Ueno and right away asked him for small favors, with one requesting a gift and another asking him to pick something up. Another girl called for Ueno soon afterward and asked him to bring her a bottle of water. Ueno hurried back with the water, but the girl still joked that he had taken too long, leaving him apologizing awkwardly. As he stood there flustered, a hand landed on his shoulder, and the gesture instantly made him nervous. It was the blonde girl, and with the others smiling nearby, she casually suggested they all spend time together again. Ueno froze as anxiety rushed through him, wondering what would happen to the college life he wanted to protect. From where Ueno stood, the freedom and excitement he had dreamed about already felt uncertain. He tried to convince himself everything would be fine, but his expression revealed his doubts. The blonde girl called Ueno over and told him he should try harder to fit in, placing him under even more pressure. Ueno awkwardly carried out the small task and apologized, but the blonde girl still criticized his effort while the others laughed lightly. When he failed to meet their expectations, the girls complained and suggested bringing back one of their old games, leaving him visibly uncomfortable. Under that pressure, Ueno was asked to bring another bottle of water quickly, and he rushed off right away. Even then, another girl casually asked if he could help her with an assignment later, proving that the requests were only becoming more frequent. A quieter girl adds that Ueno-kun must be having a hard time, but still reminds him not to upset Chisaki, showing that even her sympathy comes with caution. Ueno sits alone in the lecture hall, exhausted and lost in thought as his isolation closes in. Listening to the other students chatting around him, Ueno realizes he needs to make some friends if he wants his college life to change. Then he spots a tennis club trial flyer, and that tiny discovery feels like his first opportunity. After hesitating for a moment, Ueno decides to try the tennis club. A casual reply welcomes the idea, confirming that he is really going. At the gathering area, the organizers call the first years together and announce that things are about to begin. As Ueno looks around, he notices everyone else is dressed normally, and his confidence slips at once. Standing there in a tracksuit, he wonders in embarrassment if he is the only one who actually changed for the event. When someone points out that the others are dressed differently, Ueno nervously explains that he changed into a tracksuit because he thought they would be moving around a lot, only to learn they are not playing tennis today. Caught off guard and flustered, Ueno can only apologize awkwardly and ask what they are doing instead. Then, a girl arrives out of breath in a tracksuit, and nervously asks if she can still join too. The others laugh when they see she dressed for exercise, and she hurriedly explains that she changed because she thought they would be active, only to hear again that they are not playing tennis today. One member points out that the plan was written on the flyer, then apologizes for not making it clearer, while another lightly says both of them look good anyway. The girl tries to cover her embarrassment and admits how awkward this is, while the bespectacled student laughs it off with her. Later that night, the scene shifts to a city street as the club gathering continues somewhere else. The group raises their drinks together and kicks off the event with a cheerful toast. At the long table, the older students explain that the meal is on them, tell the first years to order whatever they want, and remind everyone under the legal age limit not to drink alcohol or overdo it. Someone tells Ueno-kun to relax and help himself, and he thanks them as he finally starts to loosen up. While Ueno eats, he all of a sudden notices the girl beside him going through her food quickly. As she keeps eating bite after bite, Ueno cannot help feeling surprised by how much she is putting away. Ueno notices how much the girl beside him is eating, and when she catches him looking, she quickly asks if he wanted some, while he awkwardly says no. Embarrassed, she explains that she is only eating the way she normally does, and another student laughs and says there is nothing wrong with that. Ueno hesitates, then awkwardly admits that he agrees. The others react with surprise and amusement when Ueno reveals he even went home to change, and the group realizes he and the girl were the only ones who dressed up for the activity. The girl then introduces herself as Manaka and says she is in the economics department. Ueno introduces himself as Ueno Sora and reveals that he is also in the economics department. Manaka brightens at the coincidence, and Ueno politely asks her to help him if he has trouble with credits, while she laughs and agrees, though both remain a little shy. Later, outside the building, the club talks about what to do next, and the group settles on bowling for the after-party. As they head out, Ueno asks Manaka if she is going too, and she says yes because there are still people she has not talked to yet. Hearing that, Ueno cautiously asks whether she is the kind of person who usually joins events like this. The question sounds simple, but for Ueno, it quietly matters. He is not just making conversation anymore, he is testing the first real opportunity he has had in a while. After everything he has been through, even this small exchange feels important. For the first time in a long time, the moment feels meaningful. That single moment carries more weight than it should because it could change everything. And without realizing it, Ueno has already stepped into something that feels different. Not safe yet, not certain either, but different enough to make him keep going. After so much uncertainty, even a small connection starts to feel risky. Still, he does not pull back, and that alone says a lot. Because if this conversation keeps going, his college life might finally start to change. Then the blonde girl all of a sudden appeared beside Ueno and jokingly introduced the others as his close friends, drawing laughter from the group. Ueno right away denied it and insisted they were only classmates, but when the dark-haired girl repeated that in confusion, the atmosphere became awkward. The blonde girl remarked that their history made things more complicated than that, keeping the conversation focused on the past. Ueno tried to excuse himself and quietly said he would catch up later, but the dark-haired girl noticed his discomfort and asked if he was alright. As she looked at him with concern, the others watched from a distance while Ueno struggled to respond. Noticing his tracksuit, the blonde girl teased him about the change and jokingly questioned whether the tennis club suited him, while another girl added a playful comment. Ignoring his reaction, she stepped closer and suggested that he come with them to karaoke instead. Before long, they all headed to a karaoke venue together, and Ueno found his plans for the evening changing unexpectedly. Inside, one girl enthusiastically sang a heavy metal song into the microphone, filling the room with energy. While one girl sang and another relaxed in her seat, Ueno helped carry drinks and snacks around the room. The blonde girl casually pointed out where everything should go, and Ueno quietly helped organize things while everyone continued enjoying themselves. The dark-haired girl pressed Ueno on why he had wanted to join the tennis club, and Tsubami instantly suggested he might have been interested in meeting someone there, putting him back in the spotlight. Ueno denied it, but his nervous expression made the others laugh. The conversation quickly became difficult for him to navigate. The dark-haired girl calmly pointed out that Tsubami did not have much experience herself, and all of a sudden, the teasing shifted in her direction. Another girl jumped in and agreed, saying Tsubami had no right to make fun of Ueno over that. Ueno stood quietly with the drinks while the others continued teasing Tsubami, whose embarrassed reactions only encouraged them further. The blonde girl pushed the joke even more until Tsubami finally protested in embarrassment. The dark-haired girl responded with amused suspicion, while Tsubami kept insisting she was telling the truth. Then someone called out to Ueno from across the room, and he right away looked over. Before he could collect himself, the blonde girl casually told Ueno to wait outside for a while and said they would call him if they needed anything. Out in the hallway, Ueno walked away from room 23 in a cold sweat, breathing heavily as the uncomfortable situation finally caught up with him. He stared at the floor and wondered what he was even doing anymore after letting himself get dragged into the situation again. Then, a sudden message stopped him cold, and his eyes widened the moment he saw the sender. Manaka asked if Ueno was okay, wondered if he had gotten lost, and told him she was waiting at the nearby bowling alley. At the bowling alley, Manaka quietly checked her phone and waited alone by the lanes, showing that she had not forgotten him. Seeing Manaka's kind message, Ueno froze as the contrast with his current situation became impossible to ignore. Determined to finally speak up, Ueno abruptly turned around and opened the karaoke room door, surprising everyone inside. The girls looked over in surprise, and even the blonde girl paused when Ueno returned. Shaking with nerves, Ueno finally asked them to stop treating him the way they always had. He lowered his head and admitted that he only wanted to enjoy a normal college life. The blonde girl responded skeptically, questioning his intentions and suggesting that he was overreacting. The others joined the conversation, offering their own opinions, and Ueno found himself struggling to defend his point of view. Even while nervous, Ueno insisted that they were misunderstanding him. He tried to explain himself, but the pressure of the moment made it difficult to find the right words. The girls reacted with disbelief, turning his explanation into another uncomfortable exchange. From inside the room, the blonde girl remarked that Ueno seemed unaware of how he came across to others. Ueno froze when she continued pressing the issue. She claimed she had noticed certain things about his behavior earlier that day, leaving him completely confused. With a teasing smile, the blonde girl told him that if he truly wanted everyone to get along, he should be more careful about how he acted. Ueno's eyes widened as he struggled to understand where the conversation had gone. The room fell quiet, but the tension only continued to grow. No one stepped in right away, and the silence felt heavier with every passing second. The atmosphere remained uncomfortable as everyone processed what had been said. Ueno stood there unsure of what to do next. Every second seemed to stretch longer than the last. The situation left him visibly shaken. The moment hung over the room with no clear resolution. No one moved to break the uneasy silence. The tension lingered, making the atmosphere increasingly uncomfortable. Even without anyone speaking, the room felt heavy. The silence finally broke when the blonde girl laughed lightly and Ueno quickly tried to explain himself again. She criticized his behavior and told him he needed to think more carefully about how he approached situations. Then she stepped in front of him and continued lecturing him, leaving him unsure how to respond. Ueno stared back in confusion while the other girls reacted with surprise. As Ueno sat quietly, one girl asked whether he was feeling alright, while another remarked that Shisaki was being too harsh again. With a confident smile, the blonde girl insisted that Ueno's reactions had already revealed how uncomfortable he really was. Ueno flinched when she called his name again and demanded that he listen. The girls noticed his reaction and asked why he seemed so nervous. The blonde girl then declared that Ueno would continue helping the group whenever they needed him, while the others listened and Ueno struggled to answer. Staring ahead uneasily, Ueno realized that dealing with these girls would not be easy. The girls remained near the front desk while Ueno slowly drifted away, still weighed down by everything that had happened. Outside, Ueno walked alone across campus and let out a long breath, trying to calm himself. He worried that leaving so all of a sudden the day before had been a mistake and wondered if he should apologize to the tennis club members. Then another fear rose, that they might already see him differently, and the thought refused to leave his mind. Manaka all of a sudden greeted Ueno warmly that morning, and her kindness caught him completely off guard. Her voice jolted him, and he briefly remembered difficult moments from the past, leaving him visibly unsettled. Manaka asked if he had gone home yesterday and whether he was feeling better, and Ueno awkwardly explained that he had not been feeling well but had managed to rest. As he steadied himself, Ueno remembered something important and prepared to answer more clearly. Manaka told him that the first-year members from yesterday were going out for dinner and invited him to come too. Relief and excitement hit Ueno at once, and he right away said he wanted to go. Manaka quickly said she would inform the others, and Ueno answered with obvious gratitude. Using her phone, Manaka added Ueno to the group from the day before, and he thanked her again in visible relief. As they walked together, Manaka cheerfully said they should do their best in their university debut, and Ueno gladly agreed. Then Manaka asked if Ueno was joining the tennis club after all, and he admitted that it really had seemed fun. While eating casually, Manaka explained that she had doubted whether she could even play tennis, but the upperclassmen had been very kind. Her words made Ueno pause as a familiar worry all of a sudden appeared in his mind. Ueno imagined girls from before showing up again and making things difficult for him. Concerned, he silently hoped the tennis club could remain a peaceful place. His anxiety deepened as he pictured those same girls appearing there as well. The thought overwhelmed him so much that he briefly froze, leaving Manaka staring at him in confusion. Then Ueno spotted those same girls again, and the blonde girl reacted instantly as the others turned toward him. The girls gathered around him and jokingly questioned whether he was really planning to join a sports club. Before Ueno could recover, a male student noticed him and casually pointed out that he was back on campus today. The student asked whether Ueno had gone home yesterday and noted that he never showed up at the after-party. Ueno hurriedly apologized and said he had been feeling sick, and the student checked on him while Ueno insisted he was fine now. From behind him, the blonde girl joined the conversation and mentioned that they had spent time together earlier. The student repeated the comment in confusion, and Ueno all of a sudden felt nervous. Another girl corrected the timeline, and the group began discussing when exactly it had happened. The male student looked at all four of them and innocently remarked that they seemed like very close friends. The girls instantly played along, and the blonde girl confidently agreed, while Ueno forced out a strained smile. The moment became uncomfortable once again. Manaka was still nearby, close enough to hear everything. Ueno could feel the situation becoming more difficult to manage. What seemed harmless to everyone else felt far more complicated from his perspective. He had wanted one normal connection at college, and even that seemed uncertain now. The girls kept guiding the conversation with surprising ease. Each comment pulled Ueno deeper into a situation he did not know how to handle. The hardest part was how natural everything sounded to everyone else. To outsiders, it looked like ordinary teasing among acquaintances. Ueno stood there smiling weakly, even as the pressure continued to build. A girl all of a sudden called Ueno over and handed him a tennis racket, catching him completely off guard. With a confident grin, she said she was tired of practicing alone and wanted him to be her opponent. While the others wondered why they had even come to the tennis club, the blonde girl casually said they were just curious to see what it was like. They encouraged Ueno to stop hesitating and pair up with Tsubami, and he reluctantly agreed. On the court, Tsubami stood confidently across the net while Ueno struggled to calm his nerves. The other students noticed Ueno trying his best, and he responded with a weak smile. Tsubami cheerfully told him to keep up with her while the girls watched from the sidelines. Without hesitation, Tsubami hit a powerful shot, instantly raising the intensity of the match. The spectators reacted at once as Ueno realized too late that the ball was heading directly toward him. Panicking, Ueno swung with all his strength, and his return sent the ball flying unpredictably across the court. The chaotic rally ended in an instant as everyone stared toward where the ball had landed. Tsubami lost her balance and fell to the ground, causing the girls and other students to rush over in concern. Ueno froze in shock, trembling as he realized his return shot had contributed to the accident. Tsubami slowly got back up, clearly embarrassed by the unexpected situation and all the attention focused on her. Ueno stared blankly at her reaction, unsure how to process what had just happened. Unable to handle everyone's attention, Tsubami all of a sudden hurried away from the court while the others called after her and asked where she was going. The group stood there stunned by Tsubami's sudden escape, and then the blonde girl turned back to Ueno. As Chisaki was told to go after Tsubami, the blonde girl quietly warned Ueno that the two of them would need to talk later, and unease washed over him. Ueno slipped into the restroom and let out a shaky breath, desperate to calm himself after the match had ended so unexpectedly. Just as he tried to steady himself, someone called his name, and Ueno jumped before seeing Tsubami waiting there and motioning for him to come over. While the tension from the accident still hung in the air, two girls searched nearby for Tsubami and worried that she had to be somewhere close. Tsubami cornered Ueno in private, entered the room in agitation, and accused him of laughing at her. Ueno jolted and hurriedly insisted that he had not been laughing at her at all. Still red-faced and upset, Tsubami pressed him, asking if he truly did not feel like he had embarrassed her during the match. Someone approached from outside, but Tsubami continued, insisting that Ueno had no right to make fun of her. Looking down at him with wounded pride, Tsubami declared that she was more skilled than he was. Overwhelmed by the confrontation, Ueno lowered his head and quietly agreed. After leaving with him, Tsubami hesitantly asked again whether he had really not been looking down on her, and Ueno confirmed that he had not. Then Tsubami brought up the previous day and, still unable to let it go, asked if he had been laughing at her back then as well. Red with embarrassment, Tsubami finally admitted that she had been sensitive about her lack of experience. Ueno panicked and desperately insisted that he had never been laughing at her. Tsubami awkwardly admitted that she had misunderstood the situation and then laughed nervously at herself. After a tense pause, Tsubami told Ueno that if he understood her feelings, he should cooperate with her request. She declared that helping her would make up for the accident during the tennis match, and Ueno nervously agreed to listen. Ueno could only stare in confusion as the conversation took an unexpected turn. Then Tsubami all of a sudden demanded that he stay by her side for a while, catching him completely off guard. Before he could fully process it, Tsubami decided they should settle the misunderstanding right away. Ueno recoiled in confusion, but Tsubami insisted that she only wanted his help. Flustered and sweating, Tsubami hurriedly explained that she only meant it as practice. Ueno froze at that word and tried to understand what she meant. He remembered that Tsubami had not been completely honest the day before, and all of a sudden her request started to make more sense. Staring at Tsubami, Ueno realized she was trying to overcome her own insecurity. He could barely believe she was asking him to help with something she felt embarrassed about. As Tsubami grabbed his sleeve and stepped closer, she told Ueno not to leave yet, and he nervously agreed. Ueno worried that he was being dragged into another uncomfortable situation. In desperation, he stammered that someone like Tsubami probably did not need help from someone like him. Tsubami bluntly replied that he simply happened to be the most convenient person available. Hurt by her bluntness, Ueno privately thought she could be difficult to deal with. Even so, Tsubami gathered her courage, while Ono's frustration continued to grow. With the tension at its limit, Tsubami insisted they settle things once and for all. Standing face to face, the situation became increasingly awkward for both of them. Tsubami pushed the conversation forward, while Ueno struggled to understand her intentions. Nearby, the blonde girl checked her phone and wondered where Tsubami had gone, asking whether she might have already gone home. As the two girls passed nearby, Tsubami continued talking with Wano while he remained visibly nervous. One girl suggested they should head home too, and that casual remark made both Ueno and Tsubami realize how close they had come to being interrupted. Driven by embarrassment and desperation, Tsubami tried one final time to explain herself. That was when Ueno finally lost patience and pulled away, blurting out his frustration as the tension finally broke. Ueno slumped against the wall in a daze, while Tsubami turned and ran, covering her face in embarrassment as everything caught up with her. Elsewhere, the blonde girl appeared and told Ueno to finish helping with the remaining tasks. Exhausted and shaken, Ueno could only give a weak yes and follow along. The blonde twin-tailed girl told Chisaki to stop worrying about the situation and simply move on, while Tsubami stayed in bed as if avoiding the morning. Ueno quietly reported that the cleanup was already finished, but the blonde twin-tailed girl casually replied that she could tell. When they asked if Tsubami was still sleeping, she turned under the blanket and insisted she was staying over a little longer. As the girls checked on her, Tsubami claimed she felt fine, but the blonde twin-tailed girl still looked unconvinced. At the sight of Tsubami, Ueno stiffened as memories of their confrontation resurfaced. Then Tsubami all of a sudden asked Ueno to come help her with some shopping, catching him completely off guard. When the blonde twin-tailed girl said she would come too and asked what Tsubami planned to buy, Tsubami brushed it off as a few small things and asked her to stay behind with Chisaki instead. Tsubami smiled and urged Ueno to come with her, and that only deepened his confusion. After they reached the station, Ueno nervously asked where they were going and whether they really needed to take a train. With a calm smile, Tsubami answered that they were going out for a while and jokingly referred to it as a date. Ueno forced out a tense agreement, still too surprised to react after Tsubami all of a sudden labeled the outing that way. They headed into a shopping district together, and Ueno grew increasingly nervous as the reality of spending time alone with her started to sink in. Tsubami casually said she was a little hungry and suggested they eat first, while Ueno could only follow in confusion. As Tsubami happily enjoyed the meal and called it delicious, Ueno remained tense and unable to fully relax around her. When it was time to pay, Tsubami insisted on covering both of them because she had invited him, leaving Ueno surprised by the unexpected generosity. While Tsubami shopped for clothes, Ueno became convinced she was planning something and anxiously wondered what her real goal was. Even remembering how difficult she had been in the past, Ueno found himself surprised by this more relaxed side of Tsubami. Tsubami warmly thanked him for today and said she had a great time, and Ueno reluctantly admitted to himself that spending time with her had not been as bad as he expected. Ueno gave a hesitant reply, then right away questioned why he was beginning to feel more comfortable around her. Packed together on the crowded train, Tsubami calmly commented on how many people there were in Tokyo, while Ueno struggled to respond. The crowded train made the situation awkward for both of them. Tsubami pointed out his discomfort, and Ueno right away stiffened. When she quietly called his name, Ueno turned in surprise and realized she was watching his reaction carefully. Tsubami then asked him which of the girls he got along with best, leaving Ueno completely unsure how to answer. After their outing, Tsubami said she felt she understood him a little better now, and her confidence left him feeling exposed. Then she teased him about how easy he was to read, pushing him into further embarrassment. As he tried to hide his face, Tsubami continued joking, while Ueno became increasingly flustered. Speaking quietly beside him, she encouraged him to answer her question, adding even more confusion to the moment. The moment they got off the train, Ueno staggered to a nearby bench and sat down in exhaustion, while Tsubami watched with amusement. When he looked back in surprise, Tsubami calmly told Ueno that he really was an interesting person. Ueno froze as Tsubami told him to remember one thing, and the seriousness in her voice right away caught his attention. With a firm expression, Tsubami declared that Chisaki was someone very important to her. She made sure Ueno understood her feelings before stepping back again. Then Tsubami returned to her usual smile, while Ueno remained confused about what she truly wanted. The next morning, a black-haired girl cheerfully greeted Ueno as if nothing unusual had happened. Ueno awkwardly returned the greeting, trying to act normal even with everything still weighing on his mind. He asked if he could join her, and she welcomed him without hesitation. As they walked together, she brought up the yearly dinner, and Ueno admitted he was looking forward to it. Then she wondered whether they needed to submit some kind of club application form that week. Ueno admitted he had not heard anything about that, and the light exchange briefly eased the tension around him. The black-haired girl admitted she needed new clothes before the dinner since everyone on campus looked stylish, and Ueno quietly agreed. She then said Ueno seemed to know a lot about dressing well, catching him completely off guard. Mentioning a clothing store nearby, she said she might go look around later. Before he could stop himself, Ueno said he wanted to go too. A little surprised, she asked if he wanted to go together. Still flustered, Ueno asked if that would really be alright. She agreed without hesitation, and Ueno accepted at once. The two sat side by side, and Ueno stayed nervous as the outing all of a sudden felt very real. A message from Manaka showed she was feeling unwell and would head home after meeting at the university gates later that afternoon. Realizing he would be shopping with the black-haired girl instead, Ueno sat frozen, caught between hesitation and curiosity. Then anxiety hit him as old memories resurfaced, and he wished those complicated situations would stop following him. The black-haired girl all of a sudden told him to move over, laughing as she casually sat beside him. The closeness right away made Ueno nervous. Then, in a quieter voice, she asked whether he had told anyone about what had happened the other day. Startled by her serious expression, Ueno quickly swore he had not told anyone. Before he could recover, she asked him to come with her for a moment. When Ueno weakly protested that they still had class, she explained that Shisaki and Kanako were both busy, leaving her with some free time. She encouraged him to stop worrying so much and come along. The scene shifted outside as they left campus together, and the atmosphere gradually became more serious. Once they were alone, she confronted Ueno about recent events, overwhelming him with questions until he stood there unsure how to respond. Shaken and unsteady, Ueno weakly asked why she was acting this way toward him, even as anxiety continued to build. The black-haired girl casually called it practice, and Ueno was stunned that she could reduce everything to something so simple. When Ueno reacted too loudly, she told him to calm down and lower his voice, making him even more nervous. She then pulled out her phone and stared at it seriously, as if checking instructions while continuing the conversation. Ueno realized she was following some online guide about relationships, and that strange seriousness made the situation feel even more awkward. All Ueno could do was stare in disbelief and wonder what she was thinking. She told him to stay still for a moment, making it clear she wanted to continue her experiment. The next second, she stepped closer again, and Ueno let out a startled breath as embarrassment surged through him. She complained about his reaction and refused to let him interrupt, continuing to push the conversation forward. Even while insisting she was only experimenting and practicing, Ueno suspected there was more to it than she admitted. The black-haired girl seemed confused by her own reactions and started questioning why she was taking the situation so seriously. But even as she looked unsettled, she admitted to herself that she was handling everything poorly. Flustered and red-faced, she abruptly suggested that Ueno try the same thing so she could understand his perspective. She urged him to cooperate, and Ueno froze in total confusion. When Ueno actually leaned closer to respond, the black-haired girl right away recoiled in surprise. She quickly stepped back and complained that he had taken her words too literally, while Ueno hurriedly apologized. Ueno stood there in stunned disbelief, unable to understand why he had gone along with any of it. Trying to regain control, the black-haired girl said she was tired and going home, then warned Ueno not to tell anyone about their awkward conversation. As she walked away, still embarrassed, Ueno remained there in a daze, and the whole encounter left him feeling even more confused. Ueno crossed campus in a haze, tense and embarrassed as he struggled to calm himself. He panicked at the thought of facing Manaka like this, and that fear only made his discomfort worse. Then Manaka greeted Ueno and thanked him for his help that day, catching him completely off guard. Flustered, Ueno forced himself to answer while trying to hide how shaken he still was. Even so, he told himself he could not run away now and tried to steady himself. Ueno asked if they could go to the clothing store he usually visited, and Manaka happily agreed while letting him lead. As they started walking together, Ueno grew confused by how quickly the awkwardness was turning into something more comfortable. Walking beside Manaka, he became sharply nervous and could not understand why his heart was racing again. At the store, Manaka picked out a top and said she wanted to try it on, moving ahead with easy confidence. Ueno said he would try on a pair of jeans too, doing his best to sound normal as they split up inside the shop. While changing, Ueno Sora looked in the mirror and instantly felt the jeans looked terrible, sending his confidence crashing again. From outside, Manaka Mocha called the outfit very cute and said it suited him perfectly, catching him off guard. When Manaka Mocha stepped out in a dress, she shyly asked if it looked too frilly since she normally did not wear things like that. Ueno Sora right away said it suited her, and the honesty of his answer left Manaka Mocha visibly flustered. As they left the store, Ueno Sora said the dress had looked good on her and asked if she liked it, but she admitted it felt too different from her usual style. Then, Manaka Mocha all of a sudden noticed a music shop and right away wanted to stop there, her mood lifting at once. She asked if they could go in, and Ueno Sora agreed right away. On the way inside, Ueno Sora asked if she liked music, and Manaka Mocha happily explained that a band she loved had just released a new album, while he admitted he barely knew anything about music. Inside the shop, a blonde clerk casually welcomed them while looking at her phone, unaware that Ueno Sora had recognized her. The instant Ueno Sora realized who the clerk was, he froze in surprise as the shopping trip all of a sudden became much more complicated. Anxiety right away took over, and Ueno Sora tried not to draw attention to himself while the blonde clerk remained focused on her earphones. Desperate not to be noticed, he quietly reached toward a display and tried to grab an album without attracting attention. Manaka Mocha all of a sudden reached for the same item, surprised when both of them selected it at exactly the same time. Manaka Mocha happily said she had found every album she wanted, while Ueno Sora stiffened beside her and struggled to remain calm. Ueno Sora urged himself to leave right away, but Manaka Mocha's excitement made escaping far more difficult. As Manaka Mocha moved ahead cheerfully, the blonde clerk looked in their direction, and Ueno Sora felt his anxiety rising again. Before anything else could happen, Manaka Mocha decided she would only buy one item, and Ueno Sora right away turned back toward her. Ueno Sora forced himself to agree, hiding his nerves as they drifted closer to the register. Trying to steer them away from the clerk, Ueno Sora nervously suggested they get something to eat first. Manaka Mocha agreed right away and wondered what they should eat, giving Ueno Sora one brief chance to relax. Just as Ueno Sora thought he might avoid an awkward encounter, the situation once again became difficult to escape. The message identified her as Shinoyama Chisaki and asked her to meet someone near the restroom next to the CD shop on the second floor within 1 minute. During her break, Shinoyama Chisaki checked the alert with a serious expression and right away took it seriously. The store camera footage then showed Ueno Sora inside the shop, proving his attempt to stay unnoticed had already failed. Seizing the opportunity to step away from Manaka Mocha for a moment, Ueno Sora awkwardly said he needed to use the restroom, and she accepted without suspicion. He assured Manaka Mocha he would be right back and hurried off alone, trying not to let his nervousness show. Near the restroom, Ueno Sora found Shinoyama Chisaki already waiting against the wall, and his unease right away returned as he asked why she had called him there. When he nervously asked whether this was okay during her shift, Shinoyama Chisaki explained that she was currently on break. Shinoyama Chisaki recognized Manaka Mocha as the girl from the tennis club and revealed that she had seen both of them on the security camera, leaving Ueno Sora visibly surprised. The conversation quickly became uncomfortable. Still nervous, Ueno Sora froze when Shinoyama Chisaki noticed his reaction and casually asked what was wrong. Chisaki brushed it off and told him to relax, which only made him more embarrassed. Then she abruptly said she would leave him alone for today, leaving him staring at her in confusion. As she turned toward the staff-only room, Ueno Sora hesitated and let out a surprised reaction. Chisaki right away noticed and turned back, surprised that he was still standing there. Ueno Sora tried to explain himself, but Chisaki interrupted and told him to wait. His heart pounded as Chisaki stepped closer with a confident smile and accused him of looking disappointed. Leaning in, she joked that he seemed disappointed because things had ended more quietly than he expected. When Ueno Sora hurriedly denied it, Chisaki grabbed his sleeve and led him through the staff-only door. Nearby, Manaka Mocha waited alone with a drink, completely unaware as the door closed behind them. Inside the back room, Ueno Sora froze while Shinoyama Chisaki continued teasing him about the expression she had noticed earlier. She stepped closer and challenged his explanation, making it obvious she was unconvinced. Then, Chisaki raised her phone and jokingly threatened to take a picture, pushing the awkwardness even further. As she urged him to answer properly, Sora could only stumble over his words. Chisaki laughed at how flustered he looked, while Sora stood there red-faced and unsure how to respond. Watching him struggle, Chisaki joked that she could practically predict his reactions. She continued teasing him, and Sora became increasingly uncomfortable. Sora tried to deny her claims, but the conversation only became more awkward. She looked him over critically and remarked that he seemed more nervous than usual. Before the situation could continue, a sudden phone call rang through the room, right away interrupting both of them. Still caught off guard, Ueno Sora stared at the ringing phone as Shinoyama Chisaki recognized the caller and told him to answer. Nervous, Sora reluctantly picked up the call. As the ringing stopped, Chisaki handed him the phone and told him to put it on a nearby surface. On the other end, Manaka Mocha right away recognized his voice. Mocha asked where he was and whether everything was alright, while Sora forced out a weak apology and assured her he was fine. Watching him struggle through the conversation, Chisaki told him to handle the situation himself. Ueno Sora stood there awkwardly, trying to answer Mocha as she repeatedly checked whether he was really okay. Chisaki quietly raised her phone again and joked about how nervous he looked. Hearing the strange atmosphere through the call, Mocha became curious and asked if someone else was with him. Before he could answer, Chisaki casually remarked that he did not need to rush back right away. Manaka Mocha told Ueno Sora she would wait for him and promised she would see him soon. The pressure of everything finally caught up with Ueno Sora, and he sank down into a chair in exhaustion. Shinoyama Chisaki looked at him and told him to pull himself together. When Ueno Sora reached for the wrong item nearby, Chisaki right away corrected him. Then, the scene shifted as Ueno Sora forced himself forward with renewed determination, deciding that today would be a fresh start. Manaka Mocha greeted him with a bright smile and simply asked what had happened. As they walked together, Ueno Sora tried to act normal and pointed out that it was the day the first years were going out to eat, while Mocha happily shared in the excitement. At the court, they found nobody there yet, and Ueno Sora guessed they still had time since the others were probably still in class. Nervous but trying to move forward, Ueno Sora awkwardly told Manaka Mocha to go ahead. Manaka Mocha suggested they play while waiting and reminded him that they were tennis club members after all. Ueno Sora tried to match Manaka Mocha's energy and said he had been about to suggest the same thing, drawing a laugh from her and easing the tension for a moment. They started rallying across the net, and Ueno Sora sent the ball back while Manaka Mocha happily returned it. But while they played, guilt all of a sudden surfaced inside Ueno Sora, and he admitted to himself that he had not been completely honest. The thought kept lingering as he realized he had hidden what had really happened earlier, and the feeling weighed heavily on him. Ueno Sora worried that Manaka Mocha might not even question his long absence, and somehow that made him feel even worse. Even so, the rally continued, and he mechanically returned the ball while his thoughts drifted elsewhere. Manaka Mocha lit up and asked if that meant she had won, enjoying the simple game without noticing the worries running through his mind. Her cheerful smile only reminded Ueno Sora of everything that had happened recently, and the contrast hit him hard. Standing by the net with the ball at his feet, Ueno Sora wondered what Manaka Mocha would think if she truly understood everything he had been dealing with. Then he noticed the time, and someone nearby reacted with relief as the moment they had been waiting for finally seemed to arrive. Caught in his thoughts, Ueno Sora admitted he was feeling anxious, and Manaka Mocha reassured him that the other club members were kind. Someone casually asked what was going on, and the mood around the group shifted instantly. Ueno Sora looked over and saw Manaka Mocha already standing among the other club members, and the sight caught him completely off guard. As Manaka Mocha spoke naturally with the others, Ueno Sora was amazed by how easily she connected with people. That alone sent him spiraling, fearing that if she already had her own circle, he might end up left behind. Panicking, Ueno Sora forced himself to move because he felt he could not afford to stay isolated. Just as he got closer, Manaka Mocha all of a sudden noticed him, and the unexpected eye contact made him freeze. That brief silence left Ueno Sora wondering why they had both looked away so quickly. When Manaka Mocha hesitantly tried to speak, Ueno Sora awkwardly asked what was wrong. Fighting through her shyness, Manaka Mocha asked Ueno Sora if he could stay nearby for a while, and all of a sudden, the moment felt much more meaningful. Flustered, Manaka Mocha quickly clarified that she had not meant anything unusual, and hurried to explain herself. Blushing slightly, Manaka Mocha reminded him that he had left their outing halfway through before, so she thought staying together would make it easier for him to get to know the others. Relieved by her explanation, Ueno Sora agreed right away and admitted that her idea would really help, bringing a smile to Manaka Mocha's face. Their moment ended when another club member checked whether everyone had arrived and asked if they were ready to head out. Then someone stopped the group and revealed that they had invited one more person, instantly catching everyone's attention. As the group asked who it was, another member explained that it was the girl from the other day. Hearing that it was the popular girl, Ueno Sora was surprised and asked if they had really invited her. One member replied that they felt it would be awkward not to invite her after everything that had happened. Right then, the mysterious girl arrived, apologized for being late, and right away drew everyone's attention. With calm confidence, the long-haired girl greeted them and casually asked how everyone was doing. Ueno Sora froze where he stood, clearly overwhelmed by her sudden appearance. The long-haired girl thanked everyone for the invitation, and Ueno Sora could only manage a stiff greeting in return. As she called him Ueno-kun, Ueno Sora tried to steady himself and promised himself that he would stay calm. Then she stepped a little closer and quietly asked how he was doing, leaving Ueno Sora flustered as the others looked on with curiosity.